Shalom, shalom, my brothers and sisters, my Hebrew brothers and sisters. I come to you with love and come to you with more news and information. So, this today's segment talks about who is the creator of all things. Who is the creator? What is his name? Um, as many people have heard, most would say that, well, the creator has all kind of names. But to be honest with you, that is not always the case. Now, in different as religion, because there's a difference between there's a religion aspect and there's the actual true creator of all and then some. Um, the Muslims call him HLLAH. The Christians call him JUSUS. You have the Buddhism, you have just the different things. But today we're going to focus on the two main religions that dominate pretty much the world. Okay. The first one is going to be the Christians, and then you're going to have the Muslims. Now, if you remember the history of how Christian has been created, the Christianity and things, it still goes back to the Roman Empire, the Roman era, the Roman Greeks. You know, they created this religion. It does not stem from Hebrew. Okay. Hebrew is a way of life. It is not as in, you know, you're a Christian or you are a Muslim and you can go in and out of it. If you are a Hebrew, you are a bloodline Hebrew. And always remember that. If your ancestors were brought over here on the slave trade ships and they were, you know, through the slave era, which if you remember in my past segment in Deuteronomy 28, these are the things that were going to happen to our people. As I was talking to some of my friends and family members, and they were asking me about my name, which is Yamina Yisrael, they were like, well, who are you? What do you do? You know, what is your whole concept? And, you know, I explained to them, I said, you know, I'm a Hebrew. I'm a Black Hebrew. That is what I am. That is my nativity. That is my nationality. That is my culture. I am not a religion. I don't believe in religion because religion is a systematic system that is control. The point is a bloodline. It was what was brought to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when Abraham first met the Creator himself, he didn't know his name, but he called him El Shaddai. And before the Creator ever gave him his name, he just let him say El Shaddai. Moses is the first time he ever told who he was. And if everybody remembered the story about the Egypt, when Moses came and brought the children of Israel out of Egypt and so forth and so on, you know, and the encounter of him and the Creator, you know, having their conversations and what the Creator to require of him and to give to the people and all those things in that story, he gave his name. So this segment talks about different things, and it says God is not God's name. Okay. And I say this because I think of us as human beings. Okay. We are human beings. That is true. And we all had a name given to us when we were born. And it's very disrespectful when somebody come to you and say woman or man, and you look at them and you say, oh, that's not my name. Let me give you my name so you can address me properly. And so you give the name, and the name is whatever your forefathers had gave you, and so forth and so on. So it's the same respect to the Creator of all things. He has a name. So how can you say the word God, which is such a low frequency, of a representation of who he is, and and the power of his name in itself. If you revert those words, those syllables, it's dog. I mean, it's just, and I understand that, a lot of people say, well, it's the easiest way to do it. Sometimes easiness may not be correct. And I'm not being political. I'm just saying it just may not be correct. So with this segment, I want to talk about the true living Elohim, the creator of all things, and his name. God is not a God's name. That's right. God of the universe has a name, but God isn't it. God is what God is. Human beings is not your name. Human beings is what you are. You also have a name, whether it is Barbara or Ken or Tom or Debbie. You have your own personal name. So does God. This information is on the internet, and I will give you the website that you can go on, and there's other websites that correlate as reference to this information I'm talking about. So I'm referencing information that is on the website for your opportunity to research for yourself. Okay, so I want to make sure that disclaimer was put out there. And what is God's name? Glad you asked. This is the writing that will help you to recognize the answer. Before we get too deep into this thing, here's some hints to get you started. You already know God's name. Oh yes, there are many and many names people have given to God, but he or she picked one and only for him or herself. God's real name is the same for all people everywhere. It matters not at which religion or cultural heritage you are from. Truth transcends all boundaries we seek to erect. And no matter who you are or where you are from, you have known this name from day your mind first began to awake. You see it and you hear it each and every day. The problem with God is not that he's so far away that we can't see him. Rather, he is too close that we overlook him. So, our quest for God is just like the fish in the search of a water. So, don't be surprised if you start to recognize God's name everywhere. And that's important because as a Hebrew, as a true living Hebrew, a descendant from a slave, it was very important for us to reconnect to the Creator in himself. So, I take it personally, and please understand, it's nothing to offend anybody, but I do, because when I want to communicate to the Creator, I want to be able to talk to him with the respect of saying his name, because that name is power. It is truly power, and it's knowledge, and it's understanding, because he tells you, seek me and I will give you life. He is the true living Elohim. He didn't die on some cross. He didn't go and descend to anywhere. He is the thing of all things. I will bring some scriptures as well in here that talks about him as who he is. So, there are biblical records in the Judeo-Christian, Islamic religion, culture, traditions spanning several millennia and the vast majority of the Western world. There is only one acknowledged personal name for God himself. There are many descriptions, the Almighty, the Beneficent, but only one personal name of God. The Islamic tradition speaks of 100 names of ALLAH. And you're probably wondering why I spell out that name. Because for one, it is part of another religion, and two, it is another idol that was created. And I will talk about that maybe in another segment. But in his word, he said, make no mention of any other idols or creator besides him. So it's a disrespect to say another idol's name. But these are actually titles. The word Allah is the Arab for God, which is the English for the Hebrew word Elohim. Okay. So it gives you a lot of insight of that as well. The entire world religion, there is no revelation or rationalization of God as clear as powerful as his name that he spoke to Moses, as I mentioned earlier in my conversation. And this personal name is directly related to God's real name. So, and as I said before, when you go through these segments, it literally gives you information and kind of breaks down, the son of Israel out of Egypt. Therefore, come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the son of Israel, out of Egypt. And I remembered, I stated this before, that the word Israel is not just a person. It is a nation of people. And that is us. Okay. When Jacob wrestled all night with the angel, and that morning he asked the angel who, his name, and the angel gave him another name. He said, your name will no longer be Jacob, it will be Israel. And so, and understanding that is such a power context. So just to have that name, and it gives you that power, because you wrestle, the power of the wrestling with one of Elohim's angels is so important. And, a lot of people say, well, you're good from the Bible and it's all discrepancies and it's all been changed. And no, the point is this. You can have your discrepancies against the Bible. There are some discrepancies, but at the end of the day, his word will never go out void. Things that are happening today is definitely revelation in the Bible. Now, I'm not talking about the book of Revelation. I'm talking about his holy scriptures, Genesis to Malachi. I do not direct people to the New Testament, because the New Testament was something that was created by the Piso family, and it was all basically Greek mythology. It was not created by Hebrews themselves, because you have to remember, we were enslaved again at that time. And when the Greeks had us, the Greek Romans, they created another idol, and that's all that was. A lot of people try to use the New Testament to bring the Old Testament to the New Testament, but you really truly can't, because everything in an Old Testament contradicts everything in the New Testament. Once you truly sit down and actually study the word in his truth. Now, I say that because we've been religiousified, and I'm probably going to say that word because it's not a word it's my word made up. But the point is that we have been brainwashed, and it's sad to say, but the truth is there. So, in all actuality, it talks about this. So, and he says, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. So now, most of your Bibles are going to say God. If you don't have, and I do apologize for getting out of the video, if you don't have the actual King James Version with the Hebrew context in there, you have to remember, Genesis to Malachi was all Hebrew. It never was English. So when they try to translate from Hebrew to English, some things were a little bit hard to pronounce, or they just kind of thought that this is what it meant. But his name was always there. If you go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, his name is there. So, and that kind of correlate, going back to Exodus 4:21. And this is really one of my favorite scriptures, because it truly talks about, if people say, well, I believe that Creator had his only, had a son, and his only begotten son, and all this stuff. And let me tell you something. In the Holy Scripture, he only mentioned one son. He never mentioned JC as being his son, okay? His one son. He said in 4, Exodus 4, starting from verses 22. Well, I'll start from verses 21. And Yahweh said unto Moses, when thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put into thy hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yahweh, Yisrael is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto you, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy sons, even thy firstborn. Now, that is amazing, because a lot of people have been utilizing the New Testament saying, well, he had another son, or his only begotten son. But I challenge you to research, and I challenge you to really read the scriptures in its context, because it does not say that he had his only begotten son in the old scriptures. It does not. He tells you here who his sons was, and that was Israel, and that was us as a people. Okay, so I've mentioned his name, and his name is Yahweh. And he says, I am who I am. That is the Creator's name. It is clear. And how it is spelled is amazing, because it's very clear, it's very strong, it's very precise, because it has power. And he's the only Elohim, the living Elohim. Okay, so to go back, he who is the self-existing one, he who is ever becoming what he is. And that may not seem like it says very much. That is because it's a statement of infinite truth. God's name, that I am, reveals the fullness of his nature. All of God's nature and attributes are embodied in his name. But at first it seems like air to a bird. So what's the big deal? I hope to be able to show you just how big a deal it is, and what it means for you. To do that, we're going to need a brief lesson in linguistics. I'm sorry, my tongue is tired. This may seem confusing, but believe me, this is very important. It translates. Now, I am is the English translation of the meaning God's personal name. The English transliteration of God's personal name is, as I said before, Yahweh. A lot of people have not heard that. And I've heard people say, who is this Yahweh? Is this a new evil? Is this a devil or something? What's going on with this Yahweh? This is the part where I say that that's when you've been brainwashed. Because Yahweh is that old name, very old and very clear. And he was before the ALLH, before the JC, before any other of these other names that you might have heard of. And this is the part where I say this in all sweetness as I can. When you have been taught a certain way, you don't think that there's anything else that's different. And this is the part where, as I said before, I challenge you to be able to go out there and research for yourself, because I want my people truly to wake up and realize that you have an opportunity to know the Creator for yourself, and really truly be in his good gracious. And I will talk about different segments about how to get back to Yahweh and how you are truly supposed to live. But for the 4 Hebrew letters translator Yahweh are Y, a Yod, rhythms with Raz, which means, which we translate to Y. H, he rhymes with say, which says translator H. Va, like lava, which we translated to W, or V, which is Yahweh, a Yallah, a Yahweh, Yahweh. Okay. And another he, which is H, again, Yahweh. Originally Hebrew, we're talking over 3,000 years old ago, folks, didn't have any vowels, was written right to left. So that's very clear and that's very precise. And we didn't have a J for years. The J was actually implemented from the Romans. It was not implemented from the Hebrew. So J was never even in our vowels at all when we was speaking in our language as Hebrew. And we spell from left to right, or I mean right to left. So Yahweh, which you can put an A or a W to kind of clear it out, but it is Yahweh. Okay, I am who I am. That is our Elohim. That is our creator of all things. And he is looking for his people. He's wanted his son to come back to him. He wants Jacob, Yisrael, to come back to him, because he can do all things. When you feel like your mind is going crazy, if you go back to Yahweh, he will give you back your life. He gives you back your sanity. He gives you your peace. And he is the best thing that ever happens. This is not my words. This is the information that's already out there. It's the point of researching. So I say to my people, love, peace, and happiness. Shalom, shalom, shalom.